Welcome to Wii Vault, a series on this channel where I take a look back at old Wii games, see if they're good, they hold up today, and if they should come back. Today's guest, Kung Fu Panda. This is a tie-in video game, tying in with the movie, obviously. Now, this game actually came out 3 days before the movie actually came out. The game coming out June 3rd, 2008. The video game, June 6th, 2008. The game was published by Activision, but was actually developed by different studios depending on the versions of the game. Came out on the Wii, obviously, and the PS2 version, both being developed by X-Spec Entertainment. The PS3 and the Xbox 360 versions being Luxaflux, the PC version being Beanox Shift, and the DS version Vicarious Visions. Now, movie tie-in games have a reputation for being pretty bad, right? Not really being too good. Does Kung Fu Panda meet those same expectations, or does it rise above them? And should a game like this come back today? Let's take a look. So this game does mostly have the same storyline as the movie, so I'm not going to go too in-depth because this isn't a movie review, this is the game review, so I'm going to give a very bare-bones explanation of the story, mainly what the game and the movie both share. The bare-bones story is that Po is chosen to be the Dragon Warrior with no martial arts training and not having the typical look of a Kung Fu master with his panda body build. But Po and everyone else learns that it's about heart and attitude and not outward appearances that matter. Po uses his unique skills, given his build, to defeat Tai Lung, a crazy Kung Fu master who is hell-bent on being the Dragon Warrior, but for all of the wrong reasons. And after beating Tai Lung, everybody just comes together in peace and harmony. Now, there's some pretty big differences in between this version and the movie. For starters, Po can pretty much throw hands immediately. They make a big point of emphasis about how he can't fight, he's not ready to be the Dragon Warrior, but he's already fighting before he even gets chosen as the Dragon Warrior. We see him go through some training sections that he can pretty much already do, and if you're good enough as a player, you can beat the Furious Five's times and skills at these same training missions. So it doesn't hit the same that he's not physically capable, that he's not ready like it does in the movie. Another pretty major difference is that we don't see any of Tai Lung and Shifu's backstory in this one, with Shifu pretty much raising Tai Lung as a kid, and then Tai Lung eventually betrays him, and it leads to an emotional fight in the movie, and that fight is in here in the video game, but you're not shown the relationship. It's not built up beforehand, so it just feels kind of forced and out of nowhere if you were only to play the video game. There's also some side stuff that Po does where he fights these evil croc gang that are attacking these turtles and their eggs. He's also fighting some apes that we just don't see at all happen within the movie. The purpose in the video game is just for him to be learning and improving upon his skills, but he's able to do it pretty much effortlessly to start, so you don't really feel that struggle or any of that growth. Another difference is that in the movie, when the Furious Five goes to fight Tai Lung, after they're beat, Crane comes and flies them all back while they're paralyzed. In this version, Tai Lung beats them, and they all get captured, and Shifu goes and saves them all. I would say another pretty big difference is that in this one, after Po went out to go fight some guys, he gets lost on his way back to the palace and eventually finds himself upon Tai Lung's training grounds. There he kind of fights some goons, but then he actually meets Tai Lung. And at this point, Po's not really ready to be the Dragon Warrior. He doesn't reveal that, and Tai Lung just kind of pushes him down into this little hole where Obi-Wan Kenobi ghost Master Oogway is speaking to Po, and we see Po learn the Wuxi finger hold, or at least it cuts off alluding to him learning the Wuxi finger hold, which I do kind of like because in the movie, the Wuxi finger hold is just kind of out of nowhere. Shifu scares him with it in the beginning, but Po just figuring it out by himself was not shown in any way. At least here we actually do see him figure it out pretty much by himself. But while on the conversation of the Wuxi finger hold, so in the movie, Shifu scares Po with the Wuxi finger hold and tells him that the hardest part of the hold is cleaning up afterwards. Shifu doesn't do that to Po in the video game, but in the video game, when Po has Tai Lung in the Wuxi finger hold, he tells Tai Lung the hardest part is cleaning up afterwards. But in the movie, he doesn't tell him that. Just kind of a weird cross here of like one having the build up with no payoff and then one having the payoff with no build up, which was just kind of weird, a weird dialogue thing. I don't know if a scene was cut from the movie, if something was cut from the game, but both feel like they have pieces from each other that the other doesn't have. Very interesting. So overall, the game's story has some fun moments and some cute cutscenes, some cool visuals within the story, but it doesn't have any of the build-up, the development, the growth, the payoff that the movie does. It has the bare bones, same story as the movie, stripped of all the heart. For that, I got to give the story of this game a 3 out of 10. The characters and the world design all look just like the movie. Visually, it feels very much just like the movie. Obviously, just a more pixelated version of the movie, but it does feel like it's in the same world. Characters look one for one like their movie counterpart. The world feels just like the same world. The video game also adds more characters, different turtles that we meet, different crocodiles, apes, different things like that still feel like they fit within that same world. But the voice acting, there are different voice actors for some of these roles, most of these roles actually, and there's some inconsistencies with the voice soundings, like Poe. Some of his jump sounds sound like a completely different voice actor did them. Just some inconsistencies there with the voice acting that I did notice while playing and really, felt a little odd to me. And speaking about different audio things that felt odd, there would be times in this game where the audio mixing was just off. Like a cutscene would be happening and there would just be like no audio. Randomly you would hear some random sound effects come in and then like full audio would come back in. It was just very odd.
What are you going to do, big guy? Sit on me?
Don't tempt me. Nah, I'm gonna use...
Pretty sure he does
this
in the fight. It just felt like for certain sections of the cutscenes that they just left out certain music or different audios or something was missing. Kind of took me out of those scenes. But when it was mixed well, the music in the game I think did fit and accent the game some more. Stereotypical, traditional Chinese sounding music that would kind of give it the feel of that world. Maybe a traditional American or Western view of China, but it does deliver that feeling that it intends to. So overall, the character and world design is like the movies, but just a much more pixelated version of them. Some music that really complements the feel of that world well, with inconsistent audio mixing and voice acting. And while the visuals were good, some of it was pretty basic scenery. So overall, for the arts, I'm giving it a 4 out of 10. The combat in this game was very simple. It was like run to hit an enemy, run away to avoid a hit, run back to hit him again, and repeat. There were 2 attacks you could do in this game. A light attack with the A button, and then a heavy attack by swinging the Wii remote, which, really did not feel good. It really threw the timing off of those hits because the motion controls are always iffy on these Wii games. So it just didn't quite work as well as maybe they would have hoped for. I don't know why they couldn't have just given it a button. And those motion control problems carried on over to the QuickTime events, where the QuickTime events were motion controlled. Wii remote swings, and man, did that really cause me some rage, some serious problems when I would do the motion exactly as shown, and it would give me an error and I'd have to go back. Very frustrating. I don't know why they think QuickTime events should have motion controls. Not a good idea. And there's a lot of jumping in this game, mostly as Poe, and it feels weird because they do give him that big body, sluggish type of jump that just doesn't flow right within the game. And this weird feeling also kind of carries over to these ballista sections where it makes sense that the ballista would really kind of waver around with the old school technology, but within a game, it just doesn't feel smooth. I felt like I was fighting it, having to move it, which, realism for the ballista is cool, but I'm not playing a Kung Fu Panda game for realism, so it just didn't feel good while playing. And they do allow you to play as other members of the Furious, but you play Tigress for one quick section during like the Dragon Warrior selection. The monkey mission is cool and it's decently length, so that one does feel good. You only play as Mantis and Viper and a QuickTime event in this game. And on the Wii version, I don't think you play as Crane at all. I know you play him in other versions with some more aerial stuff, but you don't play him at all in this one. The person who's not Po that you play as the most is actually Shifu, which would have been fine for some sections, but there's actually a good bit of Shifu time in this game that I just wasn't looking forward to. It wasn't necessarily bad, but when I play Kung Fu Panda, I want to be the panda, not whatever. I don't even really know what Shifu is. A lemur? I don't know what he is. Not who I wanted to be. It's not Kung Fu Lemur. It's Kung Fu Panda. Some of it would have been cool and a nice change of pace, but the amount that's in there, I think, is too much. Now, the fights in the game themselves were mostly easy, even with some of the control issues. The only exception being Tai Lung. There was just a random spike in difficulty, which I enjoy really hard boss fights. I enjoy actually raging. Like when I look back, I'm like, oh, it was getting to me. That's kind of a good thing usually, because as long as there's not something too gimmicky or just too unfair that's causing it. And that was the case for Tai Lung. I enjoy hard boss fights, but when it's a random spike of difficulty and not a nice solid progression to that point, it does feel a little off for me. But I won't say I hate it overall, but I didn't quite like the Tai Lung final boss fight. The length of it was good, though. The variation in the combat was good. Different sections of the fight. There are parts where you fight some grunts in the Tai Lung boss fight, which in this series, I've been very vocal about my hate for that. When I have a boss fight, I want a 1v1. I don't want to have a 1v12 with me fighting 11 of your goons. I want a 1v1. But for the most part, the variation of the boss fight was really well, but just the random spike in difficulty kind of ruined it a little bit for me. But it was okay overall. So for mostly poor combat, bad responding quick time events, sluggish movement when playing as Po, 2 seconds of gameplay for the other Furious 5, a lot of Shifu time, and only one okay boss fight, I really think I have to give the gameplay for Kung Fu Panda a 2 out of 10. The cast. I always like to give a little bit of love to the voice cast. In the first one, Po is played by Mick Wingert, and honestly, for most of this gameplay, I thought it was Jack Black. So he did a really good job of doing Po. There were some times where you kind of realize, oh, I guess that's not Jack Black, mainly his jumping sounds and things like that, but overall he did a good job. And he's also been Heimerdinger. Shifu is also played by Fred Tatasciore, who was Atrocity and Edge of Time, a video I also have up on this channel, as well as the voice of Samuel L. Jackson in Team America World Police. That's what IMDb said. I'm going off that. That just feels kind of weird to me, but okay. Tigress is also Bobby Holiday or Emma Frost in X-Men Legends. Crane is Drew Macy or Sid from Sid the Science Kid. Monkey is James C. or Stillwater in Stillwater. I think that's like an Apple TV exclusive show I haven't seen. But main character in something, I always got to mention that one. Mantis is Brian T. Delaney or John Jonesy Jones in Fortnite. He's that guy. Viper is Aaron Torpy or Athena in God of War, one of the Big 12 gods. Oogway is Greg Baldwin, gotta be a voice acting legend. Aku in Samurai Jack, and Uncle Iroh in Avatar The Last Airbender. Some great performances out there. I mean, shout out to this guy. He's a legend. Now, Mr. Ping, Po's dad in this, is James Hong. And he was also Mr. Ping in the movie. This is one of the few ones, maybe one of the only ones, who was in the movie and the game playing the same character. But he was also Gong Gong in Everything Everywhere All at Once, an Oscar-winning movie. Good for him, man. Now, Tai Lung is Peter McHugh. He did some voices in Fallout 76. Now, these next two are a little more minor roles in the video game, but they've been some voice actors that I've seen in a lot of the video games I've done on this channel, so I'm going to mention them out. Wu Sister number 2 and Queen Croc is Suzanne Blakely. She was Madam Web in Shattered Dimensions, another video game that I've done on this channel, this series. Check that one out, as well as Maleficent in the Kingdom Hearts series. And then Vulture number 1 is Steve Bloom. He's like the go-to Wolverine voice, and I think he's been in every single video game I've done for the Wii Vault series so far. So, a huge impact on this channel. He's showing up every time. Shout out to Steve Bloom. Now, Kung Fu Panda, the video game, feels like a rushed tie-in to a movie counterpart with poor combat, terrible audio mixing, and a story that is the same as the movie, like I said earlier, stripped of the heart, the emotion, the growth, the development, any of the payoff. That's the story in this game. Now, it does have the visuals and some music to make it feel like the same world as the movie, but it ultimately does fall short. I'm going to have to give Kung Fu Panda a 3 out of 10. Kind of hurts because I love the movie a lot. I rewatched it while working on this video. It's a really good movie. It's a really good movie. At the very least, this game made me rewatch the movie, which is beautiful. But now, let's take a look at the next game in this series.
Take control in the war between Autobots and Decepticons.
It may or may not be another movie tie-in. Now, tell me what you thought about this video, what you liked about it, what you agreed with most, what you disagreed with most, what game I should do next in this series. Go ahead and give this video a like, subscribe for more to come, and as always, keep gaming.